Awesome.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining our sponsored webinar with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. We will start in a couple of minutes. Again, my name is John Norfor. I am the National Director for Student and University Partnerships for Adtalem Global Education. As we wait here, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping notes with the attendees. One is that on the bottom right, you'll see a questions tab. So as we go through the webinar this evening, please feel free to drop down any questions and we'll address them as we go through the webinar tonight. My colleague, Marianne Holbert, she'll be going through the questions and answering them as we go through the presentation. And then of course, as we introduce the panel, we'll also field questions from the audience. Second is that there is a PDF, there's a handouts tab as well, right under the questions tab in the bottom right of your screen. We have 4 handouts, 2 for each program that go over admission requirements as well as residency outcomes. So feel free to download the PDFs so you have that as a reference as we go through the webinar this evening. The webinar will be recorded, so if you want to re-listen to our panel discussion tonight, you'll have that opportunity. You'll get an email after the presentation has ended. We'll go through a couple of different items in regards to just a general program, the timeline of the program, then of course our panel discussion. It'll last about an hour and we should be done by 7 p.m. this evening. So again, thank you for joining. So we'll give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get into the formal presentation. So thank you again. In the meantime, though, I'd love to see where everyone's from. So in the questions tab, feel free to write down the state you're from, maybe your undergraduate school. We'd love to kind of give you guys a shout out. So feel free to write that in the questions tab. So I'd love to see where everyone's from here today. Okay, I see Nashville, Tennessee State in the house. Excellent. New Orleans, all right. I love New Orleans, Ohio. Excellent. Southern University. Some great HBCUs. Yeah, I love New Orleans. So I'm actually based in New Jersey. So we're expecting about 6 to 8 inches of snow by Wednesday or Thursday. So I'm jealous for all the people from down south. You know, you guys have the warm weather. I'm here struggling here.
I'm sure you have the snowmobile, so you're all right.
Exactly, and the sled too, you know. So the 2 people that you see on your screen are David Bellyard. He's the Associate Director of Admissions for AIM for the Ross Medical School. And then we have Miss Autumn Johnson, who is also a Rod Med student in her 2nd year. So they'll be part of our panel today. And as we kind of go through the presentation, you'll hear from the both of them as far as their experiences as a student and also too as an administrator of our medical program. So we'll give it 30 more seconds and then we will get started. And as again, for the people who just joined in, a couple housekeeping notes here. Again, on the bottom right is a questions tab. So if you go through the presentation here this evening, please jot down your questions. We'll address them. And also too, underneath the questions tab is a handouts tab. And there are 4 handouts regarding both programs, American University of the Caribbean and Ross University School of Medicine. Feel free to download those PDFs for your reference as we go through the program here this evening. So my name is John Norfor. I am the National Associate Director of University and Student Partnerships for Adtalem Global Education. As I mentioned before, I'm based in New Jersey in the Northeast. In my role, I conduct national webinar series for both Ross University School of Medicine and American University of the Caribbean. I provide program advisement for prospective students. So if you have any questions at the end of our presentation here this evening, please feel free to reach out to me. My phone number and my email are here, so feel free to jot that down. And if you have any questions at all regarding either program, you can reach out to me for further advisement. So I wanted to start off by talking about both of our programs. So under our Talent Global Education, we have two medical school programs. So the first one here is American University of the Caribbean, based in St. Martin. At AUC, we have great outcomes. We have a 92% first-time residency attainment last year. We had over 340 students placed in residency, 18 different specialties in 37 different states. So when it comes to medical school, you have options when applying. You have your US-based MD programs, you have osteopathic programs, then you also have Caribbean MD-based programs. AUC has been around close to over 40 years, and they have a solid reputation when it comes to student outcomes. Then you also have Ross University School of Medicine. Ross University School of Medicine has been around since 1978, has over 15,000 alumni practicing in North America. It's one of the largest alumni networks in the country. Last year, they had close to 97% as far as a first-time USMLE Step 1 pass rate, and 95% first-time match rate. And for both programs, they've made a commitment to diversity. And you'll hear today about our AIM program, that's Access to Inclusion in Medicine. It's similar to the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, where we are creating a pathway for underrepresented minorities to attend medical school, get that student support, and of course, graduate and diversify the medical field. So we'll hear about the AIM program today that Ross University School of Medicine offers. Also at Ross, they're recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. So if you're looking to utilize financial aid as far as a Stafford loan and Graduate Plus loan, that's available to students who apply and qualify. And then the goal of both of our medical programs, both AUC and Ross Med, is to offer opportunity. We offer you a holistic approach, and that's our goal for you as a pre-medical student as you're pursuing your medical school education. So at Talent Global, we have graduated more Black physicians than any other U.S. medical school combined over the last year, each year. Each year we have over 100 Black physicians that graduate from our programs. So we are doing our part to diversify the medical landscape. And again, we're doing this by providing access through streamlined pathway-based programs like AIM, or like AUC, we have initiatives that are targeted at underrepresented minority students and making sure that they have access to medical school education. And our overall philosophy is that you're more than just an MCAT. We want to make sure that if you have the requisite ability, character, and desire to become a physician, you have your opportunity. One thing I try to tell medical school applicants is that you don't have to be a 4.0 GPA rocket scientist to become a doctor, but you do have to be disciplined. You need to have the drive, and you need to have the dedication that's needed to be successful, because going to medical school is demanding. So we want to make sure that you have that desire to become a physician, and you have the work ethic, not only just to start medical school, but also to follow through and finish, and of course, practice. So as far as our pathway program, so both AUC and Ross Med offer a 4-year MD allopathic program. So your first 2 years, as far as your basic sciences, you would study abroad in either Barbados, where Ross Med is located, or St. Martin, where AUC is located. AUC has a 5-semester, 20-month track that you'll go through your basic sciences, and Ross Med has a 16-month accelerated track or a 20-month standard track. Now, once you complete your basic sciences, you would transition back to United States for your core rotation. So you would take your USMLE Step 1, you would complete your 48 weeks of core rotations. We have teaching hospitals in various states that you'll go to for your core rotations. Year 4, you would take your USMLE Step 2, that's your CK, clinical knowledge, and then you would complete an additional 42 weeks of elective rotations. After that, you will go on your MD, you actually graduate from our program, and then once you attain residency, you would sit for your USMLE Step 3, and then go on and practice from there. So one thing that I try to highlight to students is that even though you study abroad initially for your basic sciences, when it comes to your clinical years and also too when you take your board exams, all that is done in the US, and of course ultimately you're practicing in the US. Our program is designed for you to practice domestically, and we want to make sure that when it comes to your clinical rotations, as far as your cores and your electives, you're working in US hospital systems. And again, we have a long track record, both AUC and RUSM, being around over 40 years, where our students have done this, have graduated, and are successful now practicing in their different specialties. So I want to touch upon our AIM program. So AIM is a pathway program designed specifically for HBCU and HSI graduates. So HSI is Hispanic Serving Institutions, and HBCUs are historically Black colleges and universities. So this aligns well with the Thurgood Marshall College Fund as far as, again, providing that access to underrepresented students. So at RUSM, we offer a variety of different scholarship benefits, as you see here on the screen, as far as scholarships for your first semester, flights to the campus, MCAT application waivers, housing, etc., where again, we're making that pathway easier for you. Also, too, you have support from the admissions process all the way through as you continue your education through student support, and that's what Mr. Bellyard will discuss today as far as how he supports students through the AIM program. So our goal is to make sure that when it comes to, again, just feeling comfortable as you research medical schools, as you go through medical schools, and of course, as you graduate, you have that point of contact to give you that guidance. So today you'll hear again from Mr. Bellyard. He's the Associate Director of Admissions for AIM. And here's his contact information here. And I'll leave that up for 1 second as we kind of go through. And then we'll also hear from Ms. Autumn Johnson, who is a Ross student and also an AIM scholar. She went to Hampton for undergrad and also to Charles Drew for a master's program. And of course, now she's at RUSM. So without further ado, I want to introduce my colleague, Mr. David Bellyard, and he'll discuss his background and what he does for Ross Medical School. David, over to you.
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your commitment today to be able to find time, whether it be 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, wherever you are, to learn more about Adtalem and what we can offer you in terms of an opportunity to pursue your medical school career here at Ross. And I've been with the university for about 5 years now, starting off assisting students in the career development aspect of the university, helping students to put together a strong application for residency programs. And when you consider a medical school, you want to make sure you choose a school that's going to help you get to that point. And that's a residency. And as John provided you earlier, we have a 95.2% success rate for our students who pursue the match. So I was a part of that team, helping students put together a strong application, whether it be preparing them for interviews, helping them identify experiences, and just beginning to help them identify what areas of medicine they wanted to pursue. So working with students in that area for about 2.5, 3 years, I was able to begin working on an opportunity that would set the university apart from all the other universities, and that's to be more intentional about how we can provide access to students from minority institutions, such as our HBCUs and historically Black colleges and universities. And we begin to identify there's a lot of barriers of entry that impact students who want to pursue medical school. It could be a lot of self-efficacy. A lot of them may not think they can do it, and then they look at the cost, and they look at the MCAT score, and they may not know about Ross University. So we wanted to be intentional, and we wanted to be, a groundbreaking university to provide access to our university by removing any financial barriers. So we started to align ourselves with top performing HBCUs to be our foundation to begin to tap into these schools and begin to streamline our admissions process. And that's to begin to work with the advisors at the schools, and then from there begin to work with the students in the pre-med programs, or just students who are just curious about medicine, and begin to work with them. And the program has been in existence for now about 2.5 years, maybe 2 years, I should say. And we're having success with about 41 students in the program since its inception. And we support our students from the time that they, consider Ross University, and all the way up until they are accepted, and then we continue to support them all the way through.
Autumn, feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, John and David. I'm excited to be able to talk about this experience for me, being an Ames scholar and attending Ross. David has been extremely helpful for me. One of the greatest barriers that I had during my pre-med years was doing well on the MCAT. And I felt like that was the biggest, darkest cloud over my head. It was a struggle trying to prepare for it, and just to meet the demands you needed to be successful in that exam. And one of the best things that I was able to learn from David, he made me feel like that's really not the only part of your application. That's not the only thing that makes up your profile as a student. And he just made me feel very comfortable with the Ames Scholars Program. And I just knew, if this program gave me an opportunity, I knew that I would, be successful. So I just was very, very thankful that I was able to be in contact and connection with David through the Ames Scholars Program.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Autumn. So to get started, Autumn, if you can, talk to us about your journey from Hampton to Charles Drew to Ross, and what did you learn about your educational experience?
Yeah, so I got my bachelor's degree in biology from Hampton University. And then I got my master's from Charles Drew. I got my master's in biomedical science, and I knew that I wanted to go to medical school. I knew that I wanted to be a doctor. I knew that I wanted to work in primary care, and I knew that I wanted to work in an underserved community. I'm from Los Angeles, California, specifically from Inglewood, if anyone knows anything about Inglewood. But one of the things that I always involved myself in was community outreach. And that was kind of where my heart lies and where my passion is. And so I attended Charles Drew specifically because it is a Black university in South Los Angeles, and that is one of their main missions is community outreach. So yeah, I got my master's from Charles Drew, and then I actually learned from my advisor at Drew about the Ames Scholar Program, and how if I were to, meet the criteria in order to be accepted into the program, my seat at Ross, I would be able to attend Ross University. I was really looking forward to studying abroad. Obviously, like that's something that's huge, that has to be, something that you would be comfortable with. That was something that I was excited about and I looked forward to. I learned about the program and that it being in Barbados. I always wanted to go to the Caribbean. And so once I started to get more information specifically about Ross and specifically about the Ames Scholars Program, I just was so thankful because I felt like this is a program that's going to provide the access that students like me just does not have. So Yeah, so here I am now in my second year, and I'm thankful that I'm able to, be on this type of panel and reach out to students and help students through their pre-med journey, because I know that it's very, very demanding, and it's very, very competitive, and programs like this are needed. So.
Excellent, excellent. And David, can you kind of explain, I guess, the genesis of the AIM program? How do you get involved in it, and how has it grown over the last 2 years?
Absolutely. So as I stated earlier, the AIM program was really to, provide access to students from our, minority serving institutions, our HBCUs and HSIs. But the goal was really to, of course, bring these students in, educate these students, so we can be able to help, improve the health outcomes in the communities that really need representation. So communities that look like myself, or and Autumn, and our students who are currently involved in the presentation today. We wanted to be able to create a more diverse health workforce to be able to help or meet the needs of the American population. And we knew the only way that we can get this done is to be intentional and to put our resources behind each student who comes through our pipeline. And that's how the AIM program came about. And this is how we're able to have over 10 partnerships with several different institutions, because they believe in what we're offering, and they believe in the resources that we have. Whether it be students who are marginal students, we can funnel them through the medical education readiness program, which is a great way for a student to gauge themselves if they're able to even handle the rigors of medical school. And we know that could be a financial barrier as well. So we're able to remove that through the partnership and making sure that our students have no issues at all. All they have to do is focus on their studies. And then, of course, with myself and the team that supports these students, we're able to track the students' academic outcomes, be able to triage any resources that they need if they're struggling, so we can be able to get the favorable outcome at the end of the semester. So the AIM program really focuses on, of course, giving students access and opportunity, but most importantly, to create a more diverse health workforce that will meet the needs of the people, that really needs representation in the health profession.
Excellent. And that's what it's all about, really creating that access for those students. So now what I want to do is open up the questions for the audience. So as I mentioned before, we have a questions tab on the bottom right of the screen. So any questions for our panel here today? And actually one just kind of came through here. So this is open to the both of you, both David and Adam. From your experiences, why do you feel diversity is important in medicine today?
I can definitely answer that. I think for me, from my personal experience, growing up, my teen years and my young adult years, every medical encounter that I had, I just kind of felt like I never, it was extremely rare for me to see someone who looked like me, someone who is Black, someone who is, a woman, a young woman. And I learned very quickly that one of the greatest barriers to, patients achieving their best health outcomes is that lack of connection between them and their provider. And I kind of that was my motivating factor, honestly. I just felt like, coming from where I come from, in South Central Los Angeles, and being a part of different community outreach programs and helping organize health fairs and wellness fairs, I just felt like there's a community of people who are not able to access or attain their best health outcomes. And I wanted specifically to become part of that space. I wanted to make myself available to these people and make myself, you help my community achieve and attain the resources that are available to them. So yeah, I think that that's one of the reasons why diversity is so important. And then another reason, just from a medical student aspect, honestly, medical school is extremely demanding. Medicine is extremely competitive. And I think that it's helpful to feel like you belong. And being able to see people who have come from where I come from, people, literally people from my same elementary school, doctors from my same high schools, doctor who, I went to Hampton with, or, Howard, Tuskegee, all of these prestigious universities, to be able to see them reach their goals and be successful in their fields and in their space. I think that that's what's important for, a student like me. I'm like, okay, and those, when I'm in the trenches and I'm like, oh my God, this is just way too much. I'm in over my head. I see those people that, come from where I come from. And I'm like, okay, yes, you
Yep.
can. So diversity, that's why it's important.
Yeah. Now, just to piggyback on what Autumn said, the continuity of care. You can go to a physician and when you see that physician and that physician looks like you feel more open to share what's really going on. And, that physician can be able to, empathize with that patient and be able to maybe make the medical terminology more understandable so the patient can understand what's going on. So there's a lot of back and forth in that experience for that patient and that doctor to help that patient to continue to come back and continue to have care. And that's maybe a brother, maybe that's a mother, maybe that's a dad, and that's a life that's being saved versus someone who goes into the physician and that they don't really see themselves, they don't feel like the person really understands them, and that continuity of care is not going to be there. So we know that representation is important because we know we need more people to look like us so we can trust the healthcare system and not be afraid of it. That's one thing. And the second thing is representation. The AIM program is intentional about that, right? We know that uh, there's probably less than 2% of physicians in the world who are minority physicians, right? We want to be able to be more of a representation and be able to create more physicians out there. And we know that if you see a black doctor or Hispanic doctor in your community, you're going to be more willing to ask those questions. You're going to be more willing to figure out how did that person become a physician versus not being able to see it, then you can't achieve it. And I think that's what's most important, being able to have that representation. And that's why diversity matters, because if you don't see it, then you can't achieve it, or you can't acquire about it either.
Yeah, I totally agree with the both of you. That representation is so important and really building that trust between the doctor and patient, right? So for you, Autumn, as a medical school student, having that additional kind of reinforcement through the representation, like you said, kind of motivates you. And that's important to understand as a pre-medical student pursuing your medical school education. And talking about the educational process here, I have a question from the audience about online classes. Um, just pull it up here. Is a program doing online learning now? How long will the online education last?
Yes, so currently we are online, because we're in the midst of a pandemic. We are expected to return back to campus in, I believe, April for my next semester. I know that my semester is prioritized because I'm nearing the end of basic sciences, and so this next semester is going to be crucial for me to get as much patient care experience, hands-on experience as I can. So yes, this semester we are currently still online. But I know one thing that has truly been so helpful for me, specifically with Ross, and I have a lot of friends in a lot of different universities who obviously most of them are in the same situation. One thing that I appreciate about Ross is like the amount of live contact hours that they've made it a point to make sure that we are having throughout the week, right? Because, medical school is, like I said, is extremely demanding. It's a lot of studying, and it's a lot of independent time. And you can very quickly find yourself, just constantly, looking at lectures, looking at, videos and going over material, studying. But Ross specifically has a lot of live, contact hours where we still work with patients via, virtually. And honestly, it's actually been really helpful because the medical field is moving to a more virtual platform in itself, especially if you want to do something like primary care. Uh, Video conference calls are essential. And I know that I've seen that, working in the medical career, working in the medical field, at different clinics. Virtual and video programs are really taking over. And so our professors at Ross have really told us to take advantage of learning in this platform, because this is really, when we come out, the next generation of physicians, like, this is honestly going to be the center of our care, taking care of patients virtually. So yeah, we are still virtual. I do miss, seeing my friends and being able to, obviously work together and work in groups like that. But yeah, we're expected to go back next semester so that we can get more hands-on experience.
Excellent, excellent. And I have a question here, kind of geared towards you, David. I'm a forensic science major. Is this program built based on concentrations in biology or chemistry, or is this built for students that have a passion for medicine?
That's great. That's a great question. It's really for students who have a passion for medicine. It doesn't really matter what major you come from, as long as you can show that you can be successful with the prerequisite science courses. So your biology, physics, organic chemistry, then you should be fine. Because just because you're an arts major doesn't mean that you wouldn't make a great physician. Um, you can be able to still empathize with patients. You can still become a great physician through the program. So a particular degree doesn't really make or break you in terms of being a great student. As long as you meet the prerequisites, you should be fine. And of course, you need to have a passion for medicine. Because this is a long-term career and you're always going to be learning. So you'll spend your first 4 years in the medical program, and then you'll spend additional 3 to 4 more years in residency. So you just have to look at the long-term journey, and if it's something for you, then I would tell you to pursue it. Here at Ross University, we have a great support system within the Academy for Teaching and Learning. You have your faculty mentors, you have your peer mentors. You have your cognitive groups that you can utilize to focus on specific areas that you may be struggling in. And what I really like about the university is that, it's important for you to stay connected to the university or even outside the university. So we have over 40 organizations that you can be a part of. So if you're interested in forensic science or whatever it may be, if there's not an organization there that really focuses on that, then you can create it and still have that passion and interest and see how you can interweave it with what you're learning in basic science. So yeah, so it doesn't really matter as long as you meet the prerequisites, you should be fine.
So, excellent. Another question here that's kind of geared towards the both of you. As an undergraduate student, what steps do I need to take to ensure I will succeed in medical school and working to get into this program?
I could definitely answer that. I will say, honestly, as an undergrad student, definitely focus on where you are right now. Don't like, overwhelm yourself with how can I, put myself in the best position. Work on where you are now. If you're a sophomore, make sure that you're, doing well in your sophomore classes, or junior or senior. I personally, in my undergrad career, I took some time off to study for the MCAT because I wanted to make sure that my, undergraduate studies, I really had those disciplines under wraps, and I wanted to make sure that my foundational knowledge was good. So I just made sure that, when I was in undergrad, I focused on that. Something else I would say is definitely, when you do, because I know as a, pre-med student, the main thing that you're thinking about is the MCAT, honestly, and it's a very, very, very daunting exam. But you can best prepare for that if you're able to recognize your discipline. Like, are you able to sit and focus and, not be distracted, actually have your undivided attention on your studies, and making sure that you're completely focused on your MCAT studies. If someone has a specific question about MCAT, I can go into that because we could talk about that all day. But yeah, I would just say wherever you are in your undergraduate career, just make sure that you are doing the best that you can to make sure that your prerequisite classes are, you really have that foundational knowledge. And I think for me, I felt so, I always felt like dang, they want me to be a straight A student. You know, like everything I have to, if I don't have A's and B's, then it's just not going to cut it. But honestly, what's really important is to make sure that you really do have that foundational knowledge, because here I am today in my second year. I'm like, oh my God, that stuff from organic chemistry was important. I'm like, you know, just kind of things like that, where it's like, okay, it wasn't just about making the mark and making sure that I got the A's and I got the B's. Like, I wanted to make sure that I knew, you know, from the bare minimum, the foundational knowledge was solid, because everything builds on that. And if you don't have that, it's going to take, I mean, obviously it's going to take some time for you to build that, but yeah, you just have to make sure that your foundational knowledge is good. And then another thing that I would say, if I were to do anything different in my undergraduate career, I would set myself up with a bridge program like AIM Scholars, because honestly, you know, it's like I said, it's extremely competitive. You know, you have an application pool of thousands of students that all look the same. You know, everybody's transcript looks the same, everybody's grades look the same. So if you know that you want to practice medicine, you know that you want to go to medical school, you know you want to be a doctor, you know that's the field that you want to be in. I honestly would advocate for setting yourself up with a program where, you know, if you meet these marks, if you meet the criteria, if your foundational knowledge is solid, you know, you have a door open for you. Because let me tell you, you know, just because you may not be successful at application year, it does not mean that you know, you're not capable. It's just literally not enough, you know, room for everybody, honestly. So, you know, if you can set yourself up with a pipeline program, a bridge program like the AIM Scholars program, I would do that from the, you know, from my undergraduate career. So hopefully that answers the question.
No, Adam, I think you're spot on with everything. Being able to start early, you know, in your undergrad experience. So if you're a freshman or sophomore, you should know how to access, you know, test prep, Kaplan resources when they're doing the Kaplan prep exams. All those things you should know. You know, when and where and when they're providing those resources, because that's going to be critical when it's time to take the MCAT. You want to be as prepared as possible. You know, you don't want to wait in your junior year trying to navigate this process. So the earlier you can connect with the advisor, your academic or career advisor, I think that'll be helpful for you. And begin to align with with the professors. You know, your professors know the opportunities, whether it be if there's you know, a few clinics in the area that you can do shadowing. I know right now COVID-19 has presented a lot of challenges for us, but Autumn mentioned earlier, you know, medicine is changing the way it provides care. So maybe you can volunteer in the clinic and shadow how they do telemedicine visits with their patients. Or maybe you can volunteer at a COVID-19 site, being able to see how that process works. So there are creative ways for you to begin to expose yourself to see if the field of medicine is what you want to, is what you really want to do. Because the field of medicine and medicine in period is going to always change. So you want to be able to see if this is something that you really enjoy. And then, of course, you know, understanding your why. Your why is what's really going to push you through those tough times, as Autumn talked about in terms of her academic experience. You know, reflecting on, wow, you know, how she didn't know that organic chemistry would come back into her medical school, right? So, what's that purpose that has led you to this point that you want to become a doctor, and that's going to help you navigate this long journey and this continuous learning journey of becoming a physician. I think if you can focus on those things with the support and aligning yourself, like Anadam said earlier, with the bridge program, getting all the exposure and understanding all the opportunities to be able to get to becoming a physician will help you and make it less stressful, because the earlier you start, the better it will be for you when it's time to graduate in your senior year.
Excellent, excellent points. And I think really having that game plan and really following through on that game plan, having that structure for yourself really helps you prepare.
Absolutely.
Some questions from both of you. Here's a question here for you, Autumn. Can you describe your experience as a med student on the island? Are you able to receive family visits? How is life in Barbados in general?
So the time that I was on island, honestly, you spend a lot of time studying. um, I'm not sure. You are able to have family visits, yes, But for me, I had my mom come with me before I started, and we just kind of, toured the island together, and we went through we met the welcome committee at Ross on island. But it is very independent. Once you get there, obviously Ross is a community within itself on island, and it's a very, very tight knit community. So I'm not sure if you would need like your mom or your dad or your brother or sister there on island with you. You can obviously have those visits. But yeah, Ross in itself is a community on island, and I think just being able to surround myself with students who are doing the exact same thing that I was doing really was what helped me to be successful. And then studying on island, Ross really provides a lot of spaces for you to study. So if you like to be outdoors, or if you like to be in a library, or if you are, an independent studier and you like to be in your room or you like to be in your house, there are lots of spaces where, you can study and be successful. Unfortunately, I was only on island for a few months, and then, COVID happened and we all had to come back home. But I do have some friends that actually went back to island because they felt um, like that environment was more supportive of their learning, that learning environment was more supportive for their success. And so, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to going back. But yeah, if you do want your family to come and visit you, you definitely can. And it's a beautiful island. All the times where I was not studying, after an exam, I took advantage of doing island tours, specifically in Barbados. I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Caribbean, but it's literally the most beautiful place.
Absolutely.
The people are extremely welcoming. It's a lot more slow paced, and they really take care of that. They understand, raw students, and what we're there for. And it really does feel like a home environment. And so the times that I wasn't studying, I was able to do island tours with a lot of my peers. We were on the beach all the time. When we were not studying, I had some friends who studied on the beach sometimes. I don't know, that wasn't my thing, but I wanted the beach to be my safe haven when I, go to relax. But yeah, there's just so many places on island where, you feel comfortable and you feel like it's very comfortable, I guess. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to going back in a couple of months.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Get away from this cold weather up here, right? Go down to Barbados, and, it's all good. It's all right.
Absolutely.
Um, Another kind of academic-based question here. Do you have anatomy labs your first 2 years of medical school?
Yes. And I love anatomy. I'm a very, very, very visual person. And so if you put something in front of me and I can actually see it, I understand it better than you just telling me. And honestly, Ross's anatomy labs are like top tier. They have everything is electronic. They went away with the cadavers. So, we didn't get to work with those, but everything is electronic, and they have different lab stations where you can learn ultrasound. You can do a lot of radiology. Like the lab is really superb. But yeah, so our first 2 years in basic sciences, we do a lot of lab work. The way Ross's curriculum is set up, it's based off of organ systems. So depending on what organ system you're in, you will have a lab to support that. They also offer like lab hours where like if you want to go into the lab and it's not like lab time, you can go whenever you want, and you can have a lab tech there to, help you if you have questions and things. But I would say that was one of the things that really attracted me to Ross, especially because I'm a visual learner. I was like, wow, their lab, anatomy lab is really, 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 really good. So yes, we do have anatomy labs.
Absolutely.
And then we also have a clinical skills department, which is separate from anatomy lab. And that's where you learn like your physical exams that you do on your patients. Like I said, everything is based on organ systems. So like if we're doing cardiovascular system, then we're learning from the clinical skills department, which is a whole separate department. We're learning, how to do cardiovascular exams, or like when we're doing musculoskeletal system, we're learning how to do those type of exams. So yes, we have a lab, anatomy lab, and then clinical skills department.
Excellent. And that's what it's all about, really having that interactive education experience. So I'm glad that you're taking a lot from that. That's important. David, can you kind of explain, I guess, the student support as you go through the medical program for AIM scholars, as far as just, being a point of contact for them as they go through?
Absolutely. So, once a student from our program applies to our university, I'm able to complete their interview. And then from the interview, I kind of gauge the student, see what their interests are, see where they are in terms of experience in the healthcare field. And then I'll provide that information to the committee, and the committee would identify where our AIM scholar would fit in terms of whether it be our medical education readiness program, which is our preparatory program to assess the student's readiness for a medical school, or the student needs to be the student meets the requirements to start directly into our medical school. So either acceptance the student receives, I'll be able to work with the student and make sure that at least they have the resources they need, from being able to connect with the Academy for Teaching and Learning, and then being able to work with the Academy to track the student's academic performance to see how they're doing. And if there's any red flags, I'm able to reach out to the student and see what's going on. Specifically right now with COVID-19, we have a lot of our students who are at home, and sometimes the environmental factors at home may impact the students' academic performance. But if we were in regular times, just tracking a student, making sure that the advisors that we have on campus are making sure that they have the specific touch points with the students, and making sure that they're successful and that they're checking in, whether it be for a lab or for a particular area in the curriculum. And then, of course, making sure the students have the resources that they need, making sure that they have a flight to campus, making sure that they have a flight once they leave or get ready to leave campus, making sure that they have their housing covered for the first semester and the second semester if they're successful in the first semester, making sure that they have the tuition paid if they're in the medical education readiness program, and then, of course, triaging any issues that may come about. I call myself more than the advisor, because students, the AIM scholars will come to me with all, types of issues, and I'm there to support them and continue to encourage them, even though it may be difficult or seem impossible for them to be successful. So that's my role in a
And,
nutshell.
and David, actually, to follow up on that, someone just asked, can you give us some secret tips for the interview and application process, or any information is helpful?
Oh man, that's a great question. The first thing is, it's important for you to learn about the institution, and have questions. Thoughtful questions will show that you're interested and that you've done your homework on the university, because you have an opportunity to do that. So you want to be able to have those thoughtful questions for myself or anyone that's interviewing you. And the second thing is, of course, dress professional. Right now we're doing everything virtual. So if you're at home with siblings, or if you have any type of distractions, you want to be able to make sure you can eliminate that, whether it be someone in your home, the background, anything that will be a distraction. You want to be able to make sure you eliminate that. And then, of course, be confident in your experiences. And be able to, if you had any issues, any struggles along the way, be able to talk about how you overcame those struggles, whether it be academically or personally. Because as a medical profession, you're going to be a leader. You want to be able to make sure that you can understand what you did wrong and how you improved, and how you are improving your life and moving on. So those are the things. Those are the few tips that I can give a prospective student who's interested in our university, who's getting ready to interview. If you can focus on those things, you should be okay.
Excellent, excellent. Autumn, so before you had mentioned that it's important to have representation to kind of go through this whole process. So for you, did you have any specific role models before starting at RUSM?
It's actually a really good question. I was working at Kaiser for a little bit before I started medical school. And it actually wasn't until I started to share with some of the doctors that I worked with that I was interested in medicine, because I was an assistant there. And I shared that I was, interested in medicine and that I was going to be starting medical school at Ross. And surprisingly, so many of the Kaiser doctors that I worked with went to Ross. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm a part of the alumni network. And I just was like, oh, I was like, I had no idea. And they're like, yeah, we had no idea that you were, trying to go to medical school. So I think one of the biggest things for me about Ross was just how large their alumni network is, and just really taking advantage of that. So many people, went to Ross and, had a great experience at Ross. And so I would say for sure, being able to be in contact with those people and stay in contact with those people has definitely been helpful for me. And then, just in terms of role models, not necessarily anyone that specifically went to Ross, but for me, I know it's probably going to sound really cliche, but all of my friends who, like I said, come from the same place where I come from, we've gone to the same schools together, we've gone to the same, undergrad and things like that together, who are currently practicing physicians, like those are my role models, honestly, like, because when you're in, study mode and you're doing the day-to-day work and it gets overwhelming. It does get overwhelming sometimes. Being able to see those people who have been successful, who are working in their career, who are, giving back to the community, and doing the things that they set out to do, like seeing them be successful really is, an eye-opening experience for me. And I believe that those people really are my role models, honestly, because you need to be able to see, people, honestly, who look like you, who are doing the things that you want to do, and see the work actually being done. And, at the end of the day, this is a field of service. Your job and your everything that you do is giving back, being very selfless and giving back to people who are in very, very vulnerable situations. It's extremely humbling. And, just to be able to see people who I know personally have said, I want to work in the community and give back to the community. Like seeing those people actually go back and do it, like those are my models, I guess. So
Absolutely. Excellent. We'll take one more question as we're kind of getting close to time here. How about student clubs on campus? David or Autumn, can you explain the student clubs and organizations, and how can students get involved in that?
yeah, I can definitely talk about that. Honestly, when I started med school, I was, you know, so focused on trying to just make sure that I didn't, take on too much responsibility. I wanted to make sure that like I could handle the workload, because the studying and the hours are very long. And so I didn't join any organizations my first semester, but I mean my first year. But I will say that Ross is very big on, if there's something, an organization that is not there, something that you're passionate about, and there's not a club or an organization for it, like you can start your own organization. And when they told us that in orientation, I was like, who is starting their own organization in medical school? Like, don't, are we just here to study? But I have a lot of friends who I started with who have started organizations, just, specific things like, now we're in this pandemic and we're working from home. And, a lot of students are, extremely overwhelmed. Some students are, like David was talking about, in an environment where they're living with other people, and, their learning environment is just not very, it's difficult. There's a lot going on in this world right now, and a lot of people are feeling it. And I've had friends who have started like, mindfulness Mondays, or, clubs where literally you just get together and you talk about the things that you're going through. A lot of people doing, mental health things. I have a friend that I started with who started a yoga club. Um, so yeah, if you are interested in organizations and clubs and there's something that's not there, you can definitely start it. And it is good because medical school can be a lot of independent learning. And so joining a club may not necessarily just be about, taking on extra responsibility. It might just give you an opportunity to like be around other students, you
Yeah.
know, and recognize that there's a lot going on, you know, rather than just studying all day long. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree, Autumn. I think joining a club helps you build more connection to the university, because if you're just in your own silo, just studying, going to class, coming back home, then you won't feel as connected to the university, and that may impact your academic outcomes. But if you're in a club, you're around your other peers, you guys are enjoying your academic process, that would only motivate you more to want to be successful. And that's one of the things that we try to encourage the AIM scholars, if it's possible, to join an organization, to be able to build a connection towards the university, and that helps your academic progression, because you have peers that have similar goals and interests as you, and that really helps you along the way. And these are lifelong friends that you can make as well. So it's important to consider that when you enter our medical school.
Excellent. And it's all about really just maximizing your educational experience. So these clubs allow you to, again, just get additional practical experiences. So again, special thanks to our panel tonight, Mr. Bellyard and Ms. Autumn Johnson. Your insight provided today was definitely helpful. And as a reminder for attendees who are still on, again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email or calling me. There were some great questions in the questions tab. Also, too, please download the handouts if you haven't already that review each program as far as admission requirements and also our residency outcomes. Again, our goal at AUC and at RUSM is to provide a holistic admissions process for you and really give you that game plan and structure that you need to have a pathway into our program. And I think, coming from the Thurgood Marshall College Fund, where they really provide you that guidance, we want to continue that as you transition into medical school. So,
Absolutely.
David, Autumn, any last minute words of advice before we log off tonight?
Autumn?
Yeah, I mean, I just, would want to reiterate, set yourself up with people like David and, different advisors from your own respective programs who will expose you to, programs like this where you'll be surprised how much access you have once you surround yourself with people who, really just want to see you succeed and really want to support your, lifelong goals of becoming a physician or whatever it is that you want to do in medicine. So yeah, just, definitely setting yourself up in these types of programs.
Yeah, and I agree. Start early. The earlier the better. You can identify what resources are on campus for you to help you reach your long-term goal. Get as much exposure as possible. I know COVID-19 may be challenging, but there can be some creative ways or things that you can do to be able to still get some exposure in the healthcare field. And of course, learn more about the options that are out there to help you become a doctor. So, institutions like Ross University are great, ways to get to your long-term goal of becoming a physician. So, learn about your options. So when it's time for you to begin to apply to medical school, you know what options are best for you, and you can save time, and become that doctor early on and not have to wait.
And then also, John, if there is any students out there that reach out and they want to ask more questions, if they, specifically want to ask me questions about Ross or, more questions about my pre-med experience, I definitely would like to make myself available to them so that I can help in any way that I can, because I know that that was helpful for me when I was coming up. So any way that I can be helpful for other students, I will.
Yeah, thank you so much, Autumn. So again, for anyone who has any questions, please email me and I'll put you in contact with Autumn to follow up for any additional questions. Thank you so much, Autumn. That's greatly appreciated. So again, thank you so much for joining tonight. The webinar will be recorded, so you will get a recording email from me after it's processed. Thank you again for joining. Enjoy the rest of your week, and hopefully we'll be seeing you at Ross or AUC. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great night.